All right, now live. Let's see if I can do this. Sorry about the delay. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with going live. I still don't get going live on Instagram. One moment, gentlemen. I didn't think I was supposed to have to go through all this again. I already copied the stream key. It's already into, but yet I can't go live. Copy the stream key and enter it into your streaming software. Select go live. I did that already. Hey, what's up? What's up, Frank? Man, I'm having the worst kind of trouble trying to figure out how to get this to stream to Instagram and like it says copy the stream key and click go live in Instagram. Well, I did all that and the go live button is dead. Do I need to close out Instagram, come back into it, let it fire up? I'll try that. Man, they make like this stuff is so easy and it's got me in this loop of nonsense that's not working. Or am I live on Instagram? I don't know. I'm probably sitting here live on both of them. I don't think so. I don't know, boys. This is confusing. They make like you just click this and click that and it goes right on there. It shows that it's streaming to Instagram. I don't see anything on Instagram and I didn't click go live on Instagram. It says you are live. Where? What's up, Drew? I might lose Frank. This is frustrating, boys. I always have trouble with this nonsense. It's like they always make like these things. Oh, you just do this and that, and it's no problem, and it's always a problem. It never works for me anyway. No, now I'm live on Instagram on my phone, so it's not working. This is aggravating. The reason I even care about it is I'm getting Jason Dotson on here, and I want to be able to the go live button is dead. There is nothing to click. Anyway, I'm going to give up on it. I'll try it again later. What's going on, boys? Technical difficulties as usual. But I'm going to have the head of Florida FWC research on in a couple weeks. There's nothing planned, and I'm just trying to work through these software issues. My God, I had to clear out. I don't know. I was doing something on Facebook trying to figure out how to get the subscription started, and it said clear out your cookies in your browser. So I did that. Well, I didn't realize that means every single password, all this stuff was erased. So I've got to go back and remember passwords and log back in. and it's just been a hassle. I hate technology. Hate technology. Just work. Why can't Chat GPT come in here and make it work? Anyway, so I got a ton going on this afternoon. Got Rudd going live. I didn't realize Rudd was about to fire up his post this afternoon for electrofishing. He came along, did some shocking with us, and I just watched that video. It's awesome. So when you get a chance, go check that out. Alex Rudd Fishing on YouTube. And if you guys want to talk about that, that's fine. I titled this "The Myth of Mother Nature's Mercy." I've had the posts keep going viral everywhere: YouTube, Instagram. Not so much on Facebook. They're a little more hard headed over there. I think they when they hear things that they don't want to hear on Facebook, there's problems. Is this? Nope, this is not. All right. Now I'm just getting blown up. So, the topic of tonight's talk is the consistently stupid comments that I get about leaving it to Mother Nature when in referral to pond management and lake management, when you consider most of our lakes are stocked by state fish hatcheries. The public ones are stocked, um, even if they're not man if they're not man-made, if they're natural lakes. A lot of states have stocking programs for game fish to help support game fish. I went down to Webster, Florida this week after I talked with Jason, and I looked at one of their fish hatchery facilities, research centers, and took the tour and talked. Be doing some content stuff about that. Now it says the live video ended. I don't know what's going on. Sorry, guys. Highly disorganized tonight. So, Mike's got a question coming in. He's paying attention. I was fishing this morning, and Mike, I saw that in that one part where the tail came out. I did a bad job filming. And then Instagram didn't upload the whole video. It only uploaded a couple minutes of each. I thought you could do longer format video on there sometimes, but it's just not good. So I'm going to edit that out and talk about that some more too. I'm glad you brought that up. I don't think that they were mating. There was little calves in there with them. And honestly, I don't know enough about manatees to speak edge. I need to do some reading. I've got a pamphlet from the hatchery that I was at about manatees. Maybe it'll give me some more information that I can relay. I think they were feeding. The eelgrass is coming back in Rodman like heavy. And if you guys have been following me for a while, we talk a lot about how aquatic vegetation isn't necessary in pond management, really, but people are a little bit misinformed because, like I said, I just talked to the head of Florida, and he talks about how important the aquatic vegetation is for largemouth bass recruitment. And what that means is how many bass are born versus how many bass survive. You get largemouth bass recruitment problems in ponds because of a crappie population. The crappie are born just ahead of the bass. Their fry, millions and millions of fish are born. Their fry go to the edges, start eating zooplankton, and then when the bass are born, start eating bass. So you start having recruitment issues with largemouth bass in ponds with crappie. Daniel's got one coming through. I'm going to break that idea. I'll come back to that idea, and let's address this. I don't understand this one, Daniel. A 30-pound bass. That's beyond the world record. You should weigh that. If it's a 30 pounder, you'll be famous. And a bunch of other like 10, 11 should I take some of the big ones out? Well, no, I don't understand this at all. Really. Um, we harvest fish for different reasons in ponds. In the video that Alex just put up, one of the ponds are going to be stocking some catfish in. So we harvested all the bass that came up because um, they're going to eat the catfish fry that we try to stock. So, we got as many bass out. We definitely didn't get all the bass out. We got as many bass out we could to try to improve the, uh, for lack of a better term, recruitment of the stocking of the channel catfish. In the second pond that we electrofished, we took out some 5 and 6 pound bass because the goal in that pond was Alan wanted more catchability. It's just a 1 acre pond. And he's got small kids, so he wanted bluegill. He wanted the feeder and the bluegill going, and so the fish were easier to catch. And he had the feeder. He even stocked some trout in the wintertime, but he wasn't having very good catch success. And I just know from experience that just a few big bass can dominate a 1 pound system. And we ended up getting, 5 or 6 bass. I think Alex said it was a 25-pound bag. Removing 5 pound bass from 1 acre pond will significantly change the hunting pressure on the bluegill population and get it to recover. So Alan's feeder will start to work a little bit better. He'll start growing more bluegill, and we'll manage that situation. But that's a perfect example of why the goal of the pond owner is the reason why the fish were harvested. Right? They're his fish, and he's not trying to grow trophy bass. And when you get trophy bass in a 1 acre pond, it's really hard. Like those are really nice fish for a 1 acre pond. It's really hard to catch those fish. Nobody ever went down there and caught those fish because there's only 5 of them. They dominate the whole thing. They're real in tune to the system. I've seen it only about 1,500 times in 30 years. So I'd say I'm more than qualified to talk about how and why you take a largemouth bass out of a pond. And when you get small ponds like that with just a few big bass, they can drastically change the catch rates. So that's why those bass were harvested. We took them out. Now the bluegill will recover. Now we'll monitor the situation going from there. Goes back to this whole idea of leave it to Mother Nature. These fools keep coming on YouTube and telling me, leave it to Mother Nature, leave it to Mother Nature. It's a man-made pond. Mother Nature's not going to come cut your grass. She's not going to come clean your gutters, and she's certainly not going to manage your bass population. That's my job. So it's been hundreds, and like when you go viral, it gets crazy, and it's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments, and everybody's misinformed, just like catch and release, just like everything else. You shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. And it just shows a complete lack of understanding of the environment. It shows a complete lack of understanding for the study of fishery science for the last 100 years. It's really surprising to me that with Google and everything, every bit of information is available at your fingertips. So go look up anything I say on Google. Anything, all of it. It's not my opinion. I'm not giving you opinions. Now, I might give you an opinion, but I'll venture note it. All this stuff is fishery science. It's been proven science for 100 years, right? But just because some pro bass fisherman on TV says you should release all the bass doesn't make it so. That's public relations for a bass tournament. That's not fishery science. So there's just massive disconnect. Actually, I built this entire business platform on the stupid. Because for 30 years, I've had so many stupid conversations like this where guys just will not stop talking. They have to be right. They have the stuff they saw on TV, which is what we call mainstream media, has to be right in their head. They can't be wrong. Absolutely can't. There's just no possible way that everything that they've seen on TV for the last 35 years has been wrong. Yeah, well, guess what? Not one of those guys is me or anybody like me or Jason or anybody else. And I shouldn't even include myself in the list with Jason Dotson and the guys at FWC. Those boys are research scientists. I'm a pond manager. I'm a boots on the ground guy. Those guys are running research projects like tagging bass and tracking bass fry and comparing the survival of wild bass fry to their hatchery raised bass fry, and then adjusting their hatchery raising techniques so their hatchery raised bass fry survive better in the wild because they tagged them and figured out that they weren't surviving very well. All right, that's brilliant science. I wouldn't know how to do a project like that. I don't have to do a project like that in pond management. Um, Recruitment and pond management, going back to the topic that I started with there. So you'll go listen to the guys at Florida we're talking about at the Elite Series in Palatka. I was just there last week. And they were talking about how the eelgrass is gone and it's affected the recruitment of largemouth bass in the St. Johns River and some of the other major lakes and reservoirs around here. And they're working hard to restore that habitat so the largemouth bass will survive. Well, that 2.5 acre pond that I'm taking fish out of is not the St. Johns River. So to take the advice of the biologist in Florida and apply it to a pond in Northeast Georgia, you're a fool. You don't understand how this works at all. Follow me? That ain't the St. Johns River. We got plenty of recruitment. I mentioned there's ways that recruitment can be affected in a pond, like by stocking crappie, which nobody will listen to me about that anyway. They just go take them and throw them in there and completely screw their ponds up. Again, crappie belong in the river. Crappie belong in big lakes. Crappie don't belong in bodies of water under about 100 acres. They negatively impact it. Again, 30 years of electrofishing experience, measurement after measurement after measurement, hundreds, if not thousands of times have I measured ponds. I can look at the measurement of a bass and tell you whether the crappie are in the lake or not without ever even seeing the crappie. They'll measure all the same, poorly. Now, how do I explain? What am I doing wrong to get that through to people? Why does college not matter? Why does 30 years experience not matter? It doesn't. I keep having the same conversations over and over and over again, over and over and over again. No matter how many 30, 40 podcasts I've been on, 30 years of talking, and it's the same stupid conversations over and over and over again. Ego gets hurt, they get wounded. I've done this so many times. I designed this because I knew as soon as I start saying this stuff on the internet, these guys are going to fire. The keyboard warriors are going to fire up and start writing me books about word salad that doesn't make any sense because they have absolutely zero fisheries management background. They don't know what they're talking about, and they learned it from people who don't know what they're talking about on television. So, and they can't be wrong. They're last word freaks. So I took all that experience and I applied it to social media, and that's how my stuff goes viral. How do you get 1 million follows? Tell people what they don't want to hear. Tell them they're wrong about something. Watch what happens. They just doesn't matter how right you are. Doesn't matter where you went to college. Doesn't matter how much experience you have. Doesn't matter that you had a business that you ran for 20 years and sold. Be a successful businessman with this knowledge. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And it's frustrating. I'm not going to quit doing it. We owe it to our bass populations for them to be managed properly. So when they start coming on and saying, well, you need to be leaving it to Mother Nature. If you guys are paying attention, Mother Nature's a brutal killer. I watched Mother Nature I watched one alligator kill another alligator 100 yards from my kayak today. Just killed it brutally. Boosh, 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 just death rolled it. That's Mother Nature. It kills. It's not nurturing. There's nothing nurturing about it. Let me put it to you another way. If Mother Nature was a self-balancing and always corrected the situation, then why do largemouth bass populations stunt? Now, see, most guys, you guys are going to understand what that means, but most guys don't even know what that means. If I let my bass population get too big in my pond, they stop growing. That's what stunning means. Now, fish are also, if you have enough forage and they're in the right balance, they'll grow their entire life, right? But if the protein backs down and they don't have enough to eat, their growth stops. That's an evolutionary trait that keeps them alive because Mother Nature's a brutal killer. They would not have evolved that way if Mother Nature just made trophy bass fisheries everywhere and they could just grow their whole life. These catch and release fools think that you put the bass back, you mishandle it, you jaw jack it. Oh, which I'm glad I said that. Talking to Jason when we bring him on, we're gonna be talking about fish safety. They did a study on jaw jack bass when they're not held properly, held down or supported with a second hand. When you jaw jack them, 50% mortality on those fish on the study that he did. Okay. They tagged them, they tracked them, they measured them, they found them dead. Now, what else do you have to tell someone other than that? And it'll be an argument. Watch to see. People will just keep arguing and arguing and arguing about it, even though they just proved it with research. So this whole idea of you leave it to Mother Nature kill you, you know? And I don't understand what Disney fairy tale these clowns are living in. I really don't. But they don't get it, and they never will. But it's fine because, like I said, it drives the algorithm. Hits me 1 million views. I've got one with 1 million. I've got one with 279,000. I've got another one with 117,000. All in a month. It just they get triggered. They start typing. If you'll notice, I'll keep coming back at them. I'll reply to stuff like that. Because again, it's just like playing ping pong with these guys. They're last word freaks. They can't not get the last word. It doesn't matter how wrong they are. Doesn't matter how much science you put in front of them. Doesn't matter how many years you've worked. Doesn't matter you were a good, successful businessman in it. None of that stuff matters. They're not going to be wrong. They're going to get the last word in. So I just don't let them. I just keep responding to it. I don't break any community rules. I don't call them any names. I'll block them if they start calling me names or you guys names, or if it gets a little, like that, they'll get kicked. But for the most part, I call it making stupid work for you. And I just keep hitting the ball back to them. There you go. There you go. And I'm hoping one of these days that enough people and enough followers. I notice I don't get as much lip on Instagram anymore. After about 15,000 followers, people start shutting up. So something about having social status will get them to listen. Right now, I'm only about 7,800 on YouTube, so I'm still catching lip. It'll change. Shout out to Alex Rudd. Shout out to Oliver Nye. Shout out to Mac Farr up Lake Lanier Way. All those boys getting on electrofishing boats, checking out fisheries management, spreading some truth around, getting rid of this nonsense that has been ruining our bass fishing for the last 40 years. I don't know. It's been very frustrating. Let me check the comments. I'm off my soapbox now. I'm probably missed a few comments. I kind of feel like that old alligator day. FAFO. Mess with me, I'm gonna death roll you. Not in a literal way, in a figuratively speaking way. I'm not on this planet to hurt anyone. I'm a pretty non-violent person, actually. But I'm not playing here. You're not telling me my dang job. You're not a profession. People don't even understand what a professional degree is. All right. That's what a biologist gets, is a professional degree. Another person that gets a professional degree, a veterinarian, another type of professional degree, a lawyer, another type of professional degree, a doctor. Okay. So when these guys have PhDs in this stuff, it's like going down to the doctor's office telling him I feel sick and him going, oh, you've got this. And you going, no, you know, those guys are professionals, highly trained, studied, just professionally trained to do their job. It's not a degree in women's studies, you know, that ain't what this is. Biggest bass I've ever caught? I don't know. Didn't have scale. Big, almost 30 inches, high relative weight, teener, but I don't know, didn't weigh it. So we talked about the manatees. They could have been mating Mike. They could have been, but I really the way the small ones were almost like playing, and that was funny, man. It was kind of cool. There was at least two little bitty ones, the smallest manatees I've ever seen, and they would like hug each other. They were like the little tiny one. I guess it was its mom. You know, it would roll over and put its little flippers up, and then it'd go over like hug on its mama. I guess it's his mama. I'm not sure because the other ones were really big, but I think there were about 10 of them in that pod. I saw them across the lake. I was fishing, and I was like, "Oh no!" I saw the tail come up, and I thought, "Man, that it looked like it was struggling." But what I think was happening because the water was pretty shallow right there, I think it was putting its head down, having its tail kick up, and wallowing like that because it was down there pulling up grass, pulling up that eel grass, which that's why they didn't. Usually they'll drain Rodman Reservoir. If the hydrilla gets really bad in here, I was talking to Jason about that. Um, they'll do a winter drawdown where they'll pull that down. They'll expose those plants to the air. You know, they'll take them out of the water completely. Just basically drain a 10,000-acre lake down to the river channel, and to help control aquatic vegetation. Excuse me, I forgot my bottle of water. Winter drawdown has a second effect too. It helps crowd the fish together, and it helps it'll bulk up largemouth bass. They'll thin down smaller bass and other problems. So kind of touching back on what we were talking about, they didn't drain Rodman because the eelgrass came back so well here. It's not come back in the St. Johns River, right? And the biologist got up on the stage at the Bassmaster thing and talked about how that grass was important for the recruitment of largemouth bass. But look at the numbers of different fish in the St. Johns River and in Rodman Reservoir. I mean, I don't even know. I'm gonna have to ask Jason what the species diversity list is of that. But yeah, when you've got, I don't know, snakeheads, peacock bass, crappie. Oh, you can even add bull sharks, dolphins. All this runs out to the coast. Um, you have a massive number of different predatory fish that don't exist in a pond. You know, we're not going to get any dolphins in the pond anytime soon. We're not going to get, I hope, pray to God we don't get any snakeheads in there. It's bad enough when you just put crappie in there. So these guys will go to these events and they'll hear how important that habitat is for like the St. John's, which it is, but then they automatically assume that that is necessary, important habitat for their pond. And it's not. Do I want to have a little bit? Sure. But the problem with the pond is it can shake loose wild out of control real fast because ponds are shallow, ponds are small. Weeds can grow and take them over. And even in the St. Johns River, even in Rodman Reservoir, that's why they drain it. When it gets to the point where the weed problem is so dense that it'll kill the fish. You can only have a certain number of alive things in the water, and plants count. So plants aren't money. More is not better. There's a sweet spot in these lakes for them. And when it exceeds that, then you'll start seeing the spraying boats come out. Then you'll start seeing the grass carp stocking. Then you'll start seeing the winter drawdowns if possible. because they're trying to save the fishery from oxygen depletion and fish kills. That was another thing that always hear around here. Always. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard it in Florida. I saw those guys with a spray nozzle just spraying chemicals everywhere and not doing their job properly. For one, how many lakes have you sprayed? How would you even know what them doing their job properly looks like and what doesn't? Secondly, I learned a heck of a lot about what goes on. And those spraying boats are hooked up to GPS, as are the nozzles. The bosses can watch those boats and see how much product is going out and see and make sure it's in the exact area that the product's supposed to be going in. There is nobody sitting there dumping chemicals like that. Okay. So everybody around here with those stories, it's just like catch and release. It's just a whole bunch of nonsense. And there's a whole bunch of scientific proof sitting right down there on that man's computer that proves everyone wrong. But try to explain that to them. They ain't listening to that. They ain't trying to hear it, because the group thinks that way. Nobody's going to change their mind. It's crazy to me. Oh, Jason also said, they didn't drain the lake last winter because there was no hydrilla problem in Rodman. There's no, and again, every person around here has blamed the Florida FWC. I think that's what they call themselves. Like in Georgia, the DNR, but I believe it's the Fish and Wildlife Commission or something like that. But everybody here, every neighbor, everyone in this area has blamed them for spraying hydrilla out of the lake. There is no spraying program. Not one drop of chemicals has been added to Rodman Reservoir. They don't know why the hydrilla isn't coming back in here. It's kind of a mystery to them. Those things happen in the world, variables, So they didn't take the water down. They didn't need to. The eelgrass was doing way better, a more highly preferred habitat for the fish. So they didn't pull the water down this last winter so the eelgrass could stay. And now look what we've got. We've got manatees up in here feeding on the eelgrass. They love that stuff apparently, because I'm pretty sure there was so much of like the grass that was just pieces of it like that. Eelgrass is pretty long. So much of it was just chopped up and floating around in that area that I'm pretty sure that it was like just cows chewing cud, Mike. And they just, oh, here's Daniel clarifying. Let's see. All right, so it's going to depend, Daniel, again, variables. I mean, if you've got 10-pound bass and trophy bass is your goal for the pond, you're certainly, doing the right things. How you maintain that is relative weight. So just like if you go watch Alex Rudd, we touch on it on there. See if I got a largemouth bass one right here. Yeah, here's a largemouth one. So you got standard weights of largemouth bass, even though the sticker's a little bit messed up. The red numbers are there for a reason. Where's my hand? There we go. That's usually where your bass gets stunted. We're in year 3 at Sugar Hill, and we're going to pull 30 bass in those red numbers out. So if I start seeing 13-inch bass that are under 1.1 pound, and it's okay if they're a little bit, like if they're 1 pound, but there's a little math formula that we use. We divide the weight of the fish by that number and then multiply by 100 to give a percentage. So if we caught a 13-inch fish that weighed exactly 1.1, 1.1 divided by 1.1 is 1, and times by 100 is 100. So that's 100% relative weight. We would consider that a good fish. If you look, like, say it's a 12.5-inch bass, right? We just split the difference on that. And a 12.5-inch bass standard weight is 1 pound. So if I weigh a 12.5-inch fish and it's 0.9 and not 1, that would be a 90% relative weight fish. And I want my fish to be above 95%. Again, this is just science. This is what they taught us in school. This is how we manage our fisheries. This is the numbers that I'm using. And actually, we got a few fish under 100% relative weight during that survey at Sugar Hill, but we had some feeder issues towards the fall. We got a new feeder, chop and feed in there all the time again. to bulk that back up. So we could have been having some issues there, but we also could be having a situation where we've got way too many 1 pound bass. So I can grow a 1 pound bass. The 1 pound bass that we have in there are 1.4 pounds. They were born last year. Growing a 1 pound bass isn't hard. Growing a 9 pound bass is hard. And because you got to keep enough 1 pounders out to allow the forage to grow, to thrive in there, taking hunting pressure off of that in ponds, in lakes too. But again, I think where the disconnect lies is there's so many variables. There's so many different things that can happen, and short attention span theater on here, they watch a 1 minute video, get triggered and start typing. And it's like, man, would you go watch my videos? Because this makes a lot of sense if you just listen. Flip in, what's up, my man? I did a copied one of him. I'm working with him as well. He's got a little 2.5 acre pond, but he's got crappie in there, and he's in a homeowners association. So a drain and restock is not going to be an option for him. He's got a pond that's kind of been neglected. Nobody's cared about the fisheries management. They got a fountain in it, and I think they had a guys putting dye in it. I don't like dye in sport fish ponds. It's counterproductive, because the base of the food chain in sport fish ponds is phytoplankton, microscopic plankton that drifts in the water. When you put dye and shade that water and reduce that light penetration, you reduce that plankton density. And when you reduce that plankton density, you reduce the fish population. Again, measured science. They've proven it. It's no different than putting a tarp over your yard and expecting grass to grow. It doesn't work. It's going to kill it. So we are reversing a management decision made by a homeowners association to have the pond dyed to the same. Now we're going to try to help, recover some fish health, because the fish are looking pretty bad. But Alex has been following along a couple of years now, isn't it, Alex? But Flipping Kicks is Alex too, not Alex Rudd. And he's been following along, and his fish population has had a drastically improved. Is looking better. It had a nice 3.5, 4 pound fish he caught. And the bluegill are starting to look real good. We've put heavy fishing pressure on the crappie. He went and invested in forward-facing sonar so he can find those schools of crappie and get on them. He's already got, I think, 100 crappie out of a little 2.5 acre pond. And honestly, he might have to take 1,000 out. I've seen that many come out. I used to put the shotgun boat in during the spawn and just hammer the crappie. Just when they're up on the edges, when they get up on the edge, they're easy to catch during the spawn. I would intentionally go in that time of year on my lakes that were in Alex's situation that I couldn't drain and eradicate the crappie and start the whole thing over, which is 99% of the lakes. Nobody ever does that either. It's way more expensive to do it. It's way cheaper to drain the lake and start it over. If you look at it over a 10-year period, you're going to have some initial cost up front to do that. But over a 10-year period, you're going to have world-class fishing, and you're going to cut the maintenance and the problems down tremendously over a decade. Whereas leaving the crappie in there, now you got me once a year coming out there trying to harvest crappie in the spring, running multiple days at $2,000 a day. So it doesn't take very long to figure out, you're spending a lot more money over a decade of pond management than if you would just drain it and start it over. But the problem that Flipping Kicks is going to have is he can do everything right. He can do everything that I say. He can feed his bluegill. He can harvest his crappie. He can put bass back, and it can still all tank. I've seen that. We've actually documented that at the Wilson farm up in Thomasville. My buddy Mickey removed, I think, I have to go back and look, 5,000 crappie out of a 7-acre pond. Fishing just got worse. Golden shiners took over. A couple of different species of fish came in there. Again, a big stream coming into a small pond, a highly diverse amount of fish like a lake, and adds so many variables that it becomes unmanageable. it was like that particular pond was like that in the 90s, and I know because I fished there, and actually in 1991 was the first time I fished that pond before I was ever a fishery scientist. And then when I got to fishery school, I figured out, hey, Mick, I figured out what's wrong with your pond. You need to drain it. You need to, start it over. And just like everybody else, I mean, nobody wants to hear that, and they kind of don't pay attention to that. And his dad didn't want to do that. He wanted to try to fix it. He stocked some fish, did a couple different things. It didn't do anything. And then finally, he was like, "Well, let's just do it. Let's just pull the plug on it." And they did. They drained it. And again, for the next 10 years, it was fish after fish after fish, 8 pounds. I mean, if you would go to that little 7, 8 acre pond, what maybe it's about 9 acres, some of it's filled in due to sediment. It used to be about 9, I guess, but under 10-acre pond, if you didn't catch an 8 pound bass, it was a bad day. Every single trip, how many 8 pounders did you catch this year? Oh, 70. You know, those are the kind of numbers that you can put up in a properly managed pond. And the reason why guys don't know that is because there's not very many properly managed ponds. When you go to one and see it, you will not believe it. You know, I've caught so many 8 pound bass that it's just ridiculous. And there's probably in 12 ponds, there's probably, again, literally like nobody listens to this advice. So there's maybe in 25, 30 years of doing this, I've seen probably about a dozen people pull the plug and start it over. The Sugar Hill pond was a new built pond. And that's the other place I've seen it, where you just stock them new and stock them right and watch them go crazy. Egos trump the truth. Doesn't that the truth, man? Mike is spitting tonight. Yeah, I don't know what it is, man, because like, again, from my perspective, like I had an aha moment talking to Jason at the FWC where he was talking about how the recruitment of the vegetation is important for the recruitment of the fish in the St. Johns and in lakes like Rodman. But in my mind, I'm thinking, well, in ponds, I know exactly what he's talking about, because in ponds, when you get a weed problem out at the edge, you get so much bass survival that it creates a huge problem in a pond. Like you get too many of them. The recruitment is awesome. They can hide in those weeds. The bigger bass can't get to them and eat them. And you let a weed problem get bad in a pond, and the next thing you know, you're full of 11 and 12-inch bass, and it's because you let the weeds get out of control. So that makes perfect sense to me. It's like a light went on in my head, Oh, they've got to have the weeds here in these certain situations because they have plecos, because they have snakeheads, because they have, crappie and all the other freshwater predators, and 3 different species of gar, and just massive, 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 diversity of predatory fish. You need those sanctuaries in places like the St. Johns River to help the bass recruitment. And then again, that's what those guys are doing at the fish hatchery. They're watching the studies, or they're doing the studies and watching the recruitment. And when they're not getting enough bass born into the system, they're hatching them out of the hatchery and stocking them. We never have to do that in ponds because ponds aren't the St. Johns River. So, like I said, guys hear that stuff from a biologist, but they don't understand the variables. I mean, they stood up on the stage in Florida and they said that, and I was like, okay, yep, I understand now. Where, it's called a straw man argument, where you take a fact from one place, but you apply it to another place where it's irrelevant. And we got a lot of that, just because that habitat's important in the St. Johns doesn't make it important in your pond. I can manage around, actually, I want to manage around weed problems. I'll use different habitat. And again, I've been growing fish in Sugar Hill Outdoors for 2 years now. They're all at or above, significantly above 100% relative weight. There's no weeds in that pond. That's not critical habitat for them. They're growing at like 145% relative weight, some of them. Huge growth and no weeds at all. Lake Lanier, no weeds at all. Massive spotted bass in there. If it was so critical, where Why does Lake Lanier work that way? World-class spotted bass fishery, no weeds, you know? It depends on where you are. It's highly variable, and that's why you need a scientist to help you, a local scientist to help you, because they're gonna understand all the little differences, you know, all the different variables that are gonna be getting in your way from area to area to area. Um, Especially the state biologists, those guys only cover a small part of the world. I was private. I covered 10 different states. I'd sub out. I'd go anywhere anybody pay me to go. And that's how I'm a little bit different in that I've run electrofishing studies all over the southeastern United States, where most state biologists just run them in one certain area of their state. They haven't seen it, wide. Yeah, another great interview, we had Preston Crispin on here. He's a fisheries biologist in with South Carolina. We came on live with us, and he's on there. Any new people coming on, go check out that interview. I thought that was great, and I'm really looking forward to having Jason Dotson on. He's again the head of the FWC largemouth bass research. Think about the Cheryl Uncle program in Texas. That's what he's ahead of here. And one thing he said to me that really stood out was Cheryl are so much different in Texas because they don't have native Florida genes. They do have native Florida genes here. So they're constantly jacking with the genetics in Texas because that doesn't occur naturally there. Right? Again, man-made reservoirs, man-made management strategies, men, biologists breeding fish, putting them in there, accounting for all the variables in all the different places and creating great trophy bass. But they don't have to do that in Florida. So what happened was 4 years ago, hurricanes blew up here and killed this eelgrass. They didn't spray it out. You couldn't spray all the dadgum eelgrass out of the St. Johns River if you tried. There's not enough 2,4-D on the planet, not enough labor force. You'd run out of money. They would not approve that. It's just, again, I have heard people say it, and I'm talking about one or two. I'm talking about hundreds of them. It's the FWC's fault that the stuff is dead. No, it's not. The hurricanes killed the grass. But here's a point to make. Those boys had 30-pound bags down there. The lack of grass didn't make the bass fishing, didn't ruin the bass growth. Those guys caught really healthy, really big bass during the professional tournament. They know how to catch them. What happened when all the eelgrass got killed is the training wheels got knocked off, basically. All right. That grass will concentrate the fish and make them easier to catch. When the grass is gone, those fish spread out and go to different places. So really what you're describing is when you don't have grass, you're not a very good fisherman. And now you're going to complain and blame somebody else because the pros sure as heck didn't have a problem putting up 25 and 30 pounds. Not at all. The fish haven't gone anywhere. There's still huge bass in Florida, even though the eelgrass is gone. They're just exceptionally harder to catch now. I struggle all the time catching them out here, and we've got some eelgrass coming back. So that's the way I see that. Yeah, I can see how from the public view who doesn't understand what's going on, the grass went away, and now I'm not catching bass. You've ruined it. No, you haven't ruined it. You just made it incredibly hard. And again, it wasn't even man, it was Mother Nature. The brutal killer smoked the eelgrass with a hurricane or two, and now we're in this recovery period. And watch and see. The eelgrass is coming back in Rodman. The seeds will spread. It'll go down the Ocklawaha. It'll end up back in the St. John's. Actually, they've got fenced off areas, another research project where they're fencing off areas because they got manatees here, and manatees are like water cows. Keep the manatees off those areas and allow some of the plants to come back because you can't get anything in there. Tilapia could also be a problem. There's another whole, species of fish that shouldn't even be here that can eat plants. So it could be I mean, we don't know. It could be the tilapia that are keeping the hydrilla out of Rodman Reservoir. Nobody knows why there's no hydrilla left here. And everybody around here has blamed the state for spraying Rodman when there's no spraying program even on Rodman. And I've been living here a year and a half. I've never seen a spray boat. The only I saw the game warden once, and I see the guy who does the creel survey. They're real good about coming and asking you about creel surveys. What'd you catch? How many? How long you been fishing? Where do you live? They collect all that data. Actually, I've talked to that guy every day I've been fishing this week. They're on it. They're on it, collecting data. And their trophy catch program is awesome. They got this program where if you catch a bass better than 8 pounds, they show you how to weigh it, measure it, get it on video, get it on pictures or whatever, and you submit it to the trophy catch. And then that qualifies you for prizes. And I think one of the prizes is a boat. They really give a lot of stuff away, but they've set that program up. So now the citizens, because they're weighing and measuring the fish properly, the citizens are now becoming scientists and helping the scientists collect the data that they need, much like this, showing them where, hey, this is where we got big fish. This is where we got big fish. Jason told me there's 8,000 lakes here in this part of Florida with 100 biologists to manage all of them. So they have an overwhelming amount of work, and they've created that program and getting assistance from the public to collect the data that they need to better manage these fisheries. And man, go watch the Elite Series in Palaca. Look at the weight those boys put up some weight. There's some nice bass in here. And yeah, they're tough to catch, but there's some big fish here. Let me go back to the questions and make sure I didn't miss anyone. You talking about that gator? Yeah, that gator was. There's some dinosaurs down there. Let's see. Christopher says, can't post comments from some destinations. Maybe I am live on Instagram. I don't know what's going on, boys, because that's learn more. Let's learn more. Well, now it's just done something to the screen. Whatever. I mentioned a video about proper bass handling and have wondered if you could talk about the probability of survival of foul hook bass, tongue, and gill. 90% mortality on blood. They're dead. They're going to die. They'll swim away. They're going to bleed out and die, and turtles will eat them when you never see them again. That's what turtles do. They catch the dead and dying fish, and they're kind of like the garbage compactors. Turtles are omnivores. They'll eat plants. They'll eat insects. They'll eat animals. But fish like us, like everything alive, has a life cycle and can get sick and can die. And there's natural mortality that occurs all the time. And so that's what turtles do, is go in there and clean up that natural mortality. Now, again, in talking to Jason, mishandling bass, wrenching their jaw with their body weight, not hanging them straight down, wrenching their jaw like that. 50% mortality on fish like that. And the bigger the fish is, the higher their mortality gets because of physics. It's like a small bass, a 1 pound bass, you're not winching enough weight to bust or sprain its jaw. But you start winching up fish over 5 pounds like that, now you've sprained the jaw, and now it can't feed, and now it starves to death. Another way that you'll get, one of the kind of pet peeves I have on YouTube is you'll see these guys boat flipping fish up into dry boat carpet, just flipping them up into the boat, let them flop around. I'd really prefer, like on my ponds, we'll use landing nets or we'll lip them and make sure your hands are wet. The slime coat on the fish is really important. It's a barrier between water full of bacteria and the fish's skin. That's what it does. That's what slime does. It's like our skin, it helps keep bacteria and things out of their bodies. So when you mishandle a fish with dry hands or put it on dry ground or put it on dry carpet, that slime coat will peel off. No different than peeling a banana peel is very like when you look at the studies, that's what it looks like. You can just literally see where it's been peeled off. Well, now you've exposed that fish to bacteria, right? So now you release the fish back into the water. Well, the whole point of catch and release is to for the bass to grow, but you've just intentionally given it an illness. So instead of it energy going towards growth, energy is going towards its immune system to fight illness and slowing its growth, right? So poor fish handling is very counterproductive. That's what cracks me up about YouTube. It's like they boat flip it, they keep it out of the water too long, they jaw jack it, and then they put it back in the water like they did it a favor. It's like you just put turtle food back in the water, dude. Um, and that's a big part of what drives me to keep going. Thanks, shout out to all 8 of you that are here. Appreciate you being here and listening. I wish there was 800 or 8,000 or I don't know how else to tell people the truth. Just keep telling it, I guess. Just keep putting it out there. Certainly is getting a lot of traction, certainly getting a lot more followers. So, all in all, it's been really positive. But it's when you go viral that it's the guys that have never seen it before, man, they give you the most trouble. And I've been dealing with a lot of the negativity the past month or so. New comments. Let's see. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate you being here, my friend. Gators eating gators. Yeah. Hey, JP, what's going on, man? Slow and steady wins the race. Thanks for that, man. I think you're right about that. I think you're definitely right about that. Let me scroll it back up, make sure I didn't miss anything. Christopher says he's sorry it doesn't pertain. Which question was that? Oh, no, it does pertain, Christopher. We're talking about talking about fish survival. So going back to that one point that I missed about the slime coat, it's especially important to understand slime coat protection in the wintertime, and in the fall when the water temperatures are cooling, because in the summertime the slime coat regenerates real fast. In the wintertime it does not. So when you boat flip one in the late fall and pull the slime coat off, now you just expose that fish's skin until the following growing season, and that's not good. So now you've got a fish that's fighting a bacteria. Say it's a nice female bass. Say it's a nice 7-pounder, right? Well, you want that 7-pounder, that 8-pounder, that 9-pounder, whatever, that nice big fish. You want that fish to spawn. You want those genes in your lake, right? Well, you boat flipper, pull her slime coat off, and now she's fought. Even if she doesn't die, her immune system is working towards fighting disease instead of working toward building egg mass. So that fish, even if it may not spawn or it may not lay enough eggs to make any difference at all. And that all goes back to safe fish handling. And that's a good point, Christopher. I need to do some more safe fish handling stuff and put some more. There's been a lot more people come aboard since I used to beat on this drum a lot and I've kind of let it slip, but I'm going to get back on that. So thank you for that comment. That gives me some more content ideas. Yeah, JP, they sure are ignorant. What's funny too is like, you don't have you ever been to PetSmart? Have any aquarium person, anybody who handles any kind of fish knows this stuff. Any trout fisherman knows this stuff. The trout fishermen are pretty good about the way they handle trout. The saltwater guys, like tarpon, man, they've gotten it to where they don't even really they'll let you lift the tarpon up out of the water, but most of the time they don't even want you to take the tarpon up out of the water, which I'm fine with. Don't take it out of the water if it's going to stress it. I don't need it. I caught a 120-pound tarpon in Crystal River. Not like I'm toting that thing up out of there anyway, but I'll post that picture. That thing whipped my tail. I don't want no part of a 100-pound tarpon ever again. But that was an experience. Shout out to Captain Socrates over in Crystal River, man. He put me on it, man. We flew tarpon all day long. I just finally tied into the biggest one, and at the hottest part of the day, it was 115-degree heat index, and I'm pulling on that dinosaur, man. It made me heat exhausted. But keep them in the water. It's handled. Every fish is different. Again, variables for every single kind of fish. But the bass fishermen are the absolute worst. I mean, like I said, they're flopping around the bottom of the boat. They're out of the water for 2, 3, 4 minutes. They've pulled the slime coat off. They've jacked the jaw, and you tell them, "Hey, man, that's not how you're supposed to do that at all." And all you get is back talk. And it's because they watch it on TV, they watch it on YouTube. Everybody else does it, so I do it. Groupthink. Oh, it's got to be right. Everybody's doing it. No, it's actually opposite. When everybody's doing it, I think what was that? Warren Buffett said that. Yeah, I believe it was Warren Buffett. You know that real famous rich stock trader. He said, when everybody's greedy, be stingy, and when everybody's stingy, be greedy. And basically, what we're saying is, don't follow the group. The group is always wrong, and I agree with that. Yeah, JP, they do. And again, I think in those communities, like the trout communities, the saltwater communities, you know, they're listening to scientists, and they've been using that information, that content longer, and they've spread the right information. So a bulk of the fishermen in who fish for those fish understand these concepts. Whereas bass fishing, for some reason, is exactly the opposite. Nobody like me ever got like real popular at bass fishing. And so you got a bunch of dead gum tournament guys, glitter boat riders that are, and it doesn't even bother me that they're killing the fish. Really, kill them. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Sometimes harvest is necessary. It's the fact that you're doing everything possible to kill it, not knowing it, and then putting it back like you're doing it a favor that makes them look like a fool to me. That's it, JP. When others buy when they're selling and sell when they're buying. That's exactly right. I don't know, boys. It's a crazy world, and I've been going around and around and around with them the past few weeks. Looking forward though, getting off that negativity. Next weekend, and again, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Drew Gregory was Bassmaster Classic kayak champion. Was kind enough to come on and speak to us live, and he's got a tournament trail going. And again, the name of it slips my mind. Kayak Adventure Series, I believe, is what he's calling it. And I think he said he's not even solid on that name. It might change, but it's going to be in Thomaston, Georgia, and he invited me up, so I'm going up there. And I certainly am not going to be doing any speeches or talks about shoal bass, because that's what the tournament. Excuse me. That's what the tournament is going for, is shoal bass. I've only electro sampled shoal bass a couple times in my life when I had some work down on the Flint River. So I am going. I'll have a little booth. I'll have some stickers. I'm going up there to do my thing, but I'm also going to get Drew is teamed up with Crescent Kayaks and has developed a shoaly version. Like he got together and made a fishing kayak. They got together and I'm getting one of those, and it is a nice looking kayak, boys. So I'm gonna pick the kayak up from Drew, and then I'm gonna go out to the river and fish one day, and I think it's like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday deal. So I think I'll be fishing on Friday. I think maybe, hopefully. I'm not exactly sure of the schedule, but I'm not going to be fishing in the tournament. I'm just going to be collecting. I'm going to have to set up the booth and break down the booth and, tents and that kind of crap. So I don't want to have to be doing 2 jobs at once, like trying to fish a tournament and trying to set up as a vendor. So I hope to get on the water though and go after some shoal bass. And I'll definitely be at the weigh in and be doing all that content with Drew. I just think that's super cool. I love kayak fishing. I've thoroughly enjoyed fishing. I've actually enjoyed fishing out of this kayak. The boat's been busted more than going with the boat. I keep tearing stuff up on the boat, man. The boat is cool, but the boat is a boat. And my problem with boats is it reminds me of work. Like I towed boats for so long and had to work at them for so long that it just starts feeling like my job. Whereas when I'm on a kayak, I don't really feel that way. But that Jackson 360 kayak that I picked up, man, from the dugout, shout out to Jamie and Marietta. Got a sweet deal on that one. Had it like he had one out there for about a year. He cut me a deal on. So I got a good price. And the wind kicked up on me today, and that thing rolls like a catamaran. I've just got a little cheap 55 thruster. I don't even know, it's either a Minn Kota or I think it's a Minn Kota, but it's just the one you get down at Walmart. It's not even a expensive $150 trolling motor. Will rocket that 360. Actually, even on one, it's actually better to run that thing in reverse for fishing speed, because one will make the kayak move so fast. That 360 is like it's like 2 pontoons with a deck. It's as big as a sheet of plywood, and it's easy to fish all the way around. I load it in the back of the long bed right now and just drive it down and put it in. Once I get a trailer for it, man, I'm gonna be cooking with gas with that thing. I have really enjoyed fishing off that boat. And I really look forward to getting that Shoaly kayak of Drew Gregory's. That thing's going to be sweet. It's set up nice. You're right, Josh. Let's see. He says you got to keep the jaw in line. I know. They don't seem to understand. They don't, my friend. They don't. And Rudd, I went on with Rudd on Friday, and we were promoting the electrofishing video, and I just posted all. Actually, I'm looking. The phone sounds like a slot machine over there right now. I can hear it vibrating. So obviously there's a lot of comments and stuff on the electrofishing work that we did together. And shout out to Alex Rudd. He's a good dude and doing the right things, talking to the right guys. He's got the biologist coming in Tennessee where he's from. We're going to try to get Jason from Florida on there. Florida's making a push. They want their research more in the public. They want to try to get out into the public eye. So we're certainly going to help them. Those guys are brilliant and doing great work, and got a really bad rap around here. And in most, I've never been to a place where people were so down on the fisheries guys. I said, around here, their name is just mud around here. Everybody points their finger and blames them for everything. And it's unjustified, because they're doing incredible work. It's a massive amount of work, an overwhelming amount of work. They're all doing a very, very good job. There's plenty of big bass in Central Florida to catch. So I've kind of taken it on as a personal mission, not only to, help with fish handling ideas, help with these pond management ideas, help with trying to get people to understand that harvest is necessary sometimes, and that you can have too much reproduction sometimes. And now we're just going to add, help the FWC get the word out, use their research, use it as content, put it out in the world, because I think that they should be treated like the Sherrilunker biologists out in Texas. They're doing the same job as well, if not better. Texas has great bass fishing. I'm not taking anything away from those boys. Shout out to all of them. They're working hard too, and they're doing a good job. But man, at least they're getting some respect for doing a good job. These guys in Florida are not. Sorry about itching my face like this, boys. I got some autoimmune issues, probably from being in the field spraying chemicals too long. And my nose starts to itch when I talk a lot. It helps me when I've got a partner on here. Been going to the doctor a lot, but nobody can kind of tell me what's going on. But that's why I get red. I get itchy sometimes when I talk. So I might just cut it off at 1:09. Let me go back through the questions. If you guys have a question, throw it in there. I'm gonna make sure I didn't miss anybody's questions. I hate it when people, come on and engage and I miss it, and it's possible to happen. All right, we're back to Frank there, so I've covered that. Yeah, Frank made a good point. Ponds can have too much vegetation. Yes, they can. So can lakes. Shout out to Frank. He's my guy, man. He's always here supporting. Grimy fishing. All right, gentlemen. I think I got everything here. Make sure nobody. And I don't know if it shows it's live on Instagram too, but I don't think it is because it didn't do it right. So I'm going to have to learn how to press buttons and do this right because I certainly want to get Jason in front of as many faces as possible. FWC research, I've got it copied on the page if you guys want to check that out. Oh, Josh, I didn't know you lived in Florida, man. That's cool, dude. If you're ever up near Rodman, you want to go fishing, hit me up, bro. I got a boat. We'll go. We'll go after them. I can't guarantee we'll catch anything. I'm doing pretty good on jerk baits. I've never been a real big jerk bait fisherman. One other thing that happened to me. So I go to the Elite Series, right? Just content. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you too, buddy. Let me tell you this story real quick, then I'll get off. So I go to the Elite Series, and it's hot. It's a Thursday. They got started. And I went there to meet Milliken. I've talked with Milliken a little bit, through social media. I met him on here, and just he was right there. So I was going to go holler at him and, get content for the page and do my thing. So I get there. It's pretty warm, and we had some. It's been real cool, unseasonably cool in Florida for a while now. It's cool today, but it was hot that last Thursday, and I was next to the stage, and there was a good spot that I could look. I could back up and see the stage, and then I could come forward and see the guys coming in and get pictures and stuff. So I asked the lady there, "Do you mind if I stand under your tent?" And she's like, "Oh no, not at all." She's real nice to me, We chat for a second, and then she goes back to her conversation. Honestly, I didn't pay attention to the table, the tent. I was in my zone, and she was in hers. And I stood under that tent probably 2 hours. I wasn't in anyone's way. It wasn't crowded that day, but sure enough, man, Rick Clunn comes up. He's one of the first people to weigh in, and he comes down off the stage. And of course, I was there. He was his 500th bass tournament. So I was definitely there. I was hoping to get to see him. And he comes right around the partition, walks right past me and right up to her. And she's talking to him and stuff. And then he goes over. There's a line of folks waiting to talk to Rick, of course. And he's signing autographs and talking to people and selling lures over there. And I said to her, "It seems like you know Rick Clunn personally." And she cuts her eyes at me like that. She's like, "I'm his wife." And I felt so stupid. Yeah, I didn't know. I just didn't know. Should have known. Didn't know. I mean, Rick Clunn. I've followed Rick Clunn since I was a boy. I mean, he's literally fished that long. I was a little bitty boy and have known about Rick Clunn since then. So the line cleared out. Like I said, it wasn't too long on Thursday. It wasn't too crowded. And I went over to the table, and he's got a spinnerbait called the Trickster. And I've always liked it. I've used it for years. And I just asked her flat out, like, "How many do you got?" And she's like, "Well, I got a box of them back here that's got I think I got 6 or 8 of them in the box. I can't remember. I already gave a few of them away, but I bought the whole box and a couple other, specialty lures that he had made up, and I got to talk to him for a second. And I told him I was going to make a post. I've loved the spinnerbait for years, and I got a page, and I'll make a post. I didn't expect anything else to come out of that. Well, heck, boys, the next thing you know, Rick Clunn's following my page. And then he comes on and he makes a comment about how to fish the spinnerbaits. I was talking about slow rolling them because I like to slow roll blades a lot. But he said, don't forget to burn them. And I was like, oh, I think probably taking Rick Clunn's advice would be a good idea. So I went and got Mike Buca's 8-foot swim bait stick. And I got that Alexa. It's like a 7.4 gears Daiwa, I think LEXA Lexa. It's got a power handle. I really like that little reel. I found it on sale at Dick's for cheap. It was way 40% discounted, sitting in the bin, and I grabbed it about a year ago. And I got a 40-pound straight braid tied to that blade, and I'm just throwing them up into the pads and burning it. Because Rick Clunn said, don't forget to burn them. So, okay, burning it. Well, you start bringing that thing through the pads like that, and it hits the pads and deflects. Sometimes it comes over them. Sometimes it gets kicked left and right, but it's a real erratic action. And I don't know why it never occurred to me, because I'd been catching fish on a jerkbait. When you start rolling those blades through there with a single hook, it doesn't get snagged up nearly as bad coming through the pads, and you're getting the same kind of reaction strike that these Florida bass kind of tend to. And every single time I've gone fishing, now most of the time out here, I've been getting skunked. I've gone fishing every day this week, boys, and I've caught fish every day. Now, they're not big fish, but I feel like I'm starting to finally figure Florida out a little bit, and it's the speed. You got to add speed and don't slow it down in Florida. Crank up the speed. And, the funny thing, too, if you go back and watch an interview I did with Mike Buca, he says the same thing about fishing his swim baits. You put the speed to them. So I'm starting to see like really good fishermen that I've been fortunate enough to have conversations with, even though it's different lures, but you're fishing with them in similar ways. So I think, I can't thank Mr. Clun enough. Can't thank Mike enough. Mike Buca enough. Bullshad. Hanging around those guys has made me a better fisherman, and I certainly hope that relaying the message on makes you guys better fishermen too. Yeah, JP. It's almost like a teardrop shaped leaf. It's got a different shaped blade. It's not a Colorado, and it's not a willow. It's a little bit different. And I think that little bit of difference is what makes the difference. But Rick Clunn designed the thing. You gonna tell him he didn't know what he's talking about? It works like a charm. And I'm bringing it. I am bringing it on those 7.4 gears and that power handle, and adding some pauses. But most of the strikes that I've been getting have been off the deflections. Make it, you kind of look for the pads that are a little bit thicker and get off the edge of it, and make a long cast past it. Long cast in Florida too. The water's real clear, so I've noticed that a little bit longer cast is better, and that's why I went to the straight braid, because I want that hook set. I don't want any stretch out there, because I'm bombing it with that 8-foot stick of Mike's and putting it way back in the pads. So I'm covering way more water and just rolling it. So when it's deflecting, I'm moving it. But when it gets into like an open water space, I'm stalling it. Just give it a pause and then get back into burning it, and it's been a really effective technique. I've like I said, I've been catching fish every day out, just a few, and nothing big, maybe up to about 3 pounds. But man, that's a heck of a lot better than going out there and getting skunked all the time, I've done that plenty of times. So yeah. Yep. Indiana blade is a good description. It is unique, JP, and get it at Bass Pro. I made a mistake. and said that there was somebody came up on the stage and said that they had his spinnerbait, and I assumed that they were working together. I made the wrong assumption. Um, I guess there was somebody's using the same blades on a different bait. It's not really Rick's. So, I don't want to support knockoffs. I got enough guys knocking off from me and taking stuff from here and using it like they know it. So certainly don't want to do that to him and don't appreciate any of that. So I corrected all that on my posts. You can just find the good trickster blades are at Bass Pro Shop. Yeah. Kind of like elongated. Yep. Just like that. Yeah, Rick Clunn is a great dude, man. You got that right. His wife's super nice lady, and I can't even remember her name. I'll just call her Mrs. Clunn. I met so many people that day. Another cool thing happened too. There was a local couple that are doing a new podcast. I can't even remember the name of it, Bass Report or something. I don't know, but they've also got a spot on local radio. And I was talking to them about what I had going on. And the next thing you know, I was on local radio in Palatka. So I got to do an interview while I was down there. I got to meet Rick Clunn. I got to meet Ben Milliken. One of the catch return boat. That's one of the posts that's just blown up and gotten me a lot of followers and a lot of engagement. So going down there to that bass fishing tournament, it really helped me out, helped the page a bunch. Chris says he's on vacation. Bass fishing in Mass has been solid. Nice. Pre-spawn jigs, spinnerbaits, mag draft. Interesting. That mag draft is an effective bait, man. I've used that before. Yeah, I know, JP. I kind of agree. You can it's just a little bit different, you know. But it burns real well. It doesn't clog up too bad. I'm bringing it through all kind of trash. And I'm catching fish on it. So, and again, having something that's just a little bit different that they haven't seen before, you know, I think that's really important. Uh, Bellows Gill kind of works the same way, you know. It's a unique profile, unique presentation, displaces the water differently. It's hunting along the same lines, and I've actually incorporated my Bellows Gill with the swim bait hook and doing the same thing through the pads. Single hook, Bellows Gill, working at the surface, burning it, pausing it, stalling it, letting it fall in holes. Now, I haven't had any success with that yet, but I'm also still, well, another thing that I did, I was out there, I rode the lake and watched where all the pros stopped and fished because one of the local guides told me, Sean Rush is his name. I got to speak with him as well. He kills them out here. But he said, man, Rodman fishes real small. And what he means by that is the bass are concentrated in real tight areas. They're not spread out all over the lake and they're hard to find. And, I agree with Sean on that. And if you guys are looking for a fishing guide around here, Sean Rush, Captain Sean Rush, I think it's Florida Trophy Bass. He's on Instagram. That guy kills them out here. I mean, 10 pounders, not daily, but almost, at least weekly. He's on them pretty hard, and he's been doing it for years down here. He's really, really good guide. So, shout out to Sean. And if you're looking for a guide on Rodman Reservoir in Central Florida, I would definitely take Sean. Yeah, the buzz frog, I tried doing buzz baits and stuff through there, but I have found that the algae and the weeds wind up into the buzz bait and make it much less effective, which is what I found interesting. I think it's the way that Rick has the beads stacked up on the blades. They don't bind as much. Now, I'm not saying they don't bind. You can definitely get them in filamentous algae and get stuff wound into them, but those trickster blades have been coming through the pads and through the trash much better than a buzz bait, much better than anything I've tried putting through there. So I think in his own way, he kind of said that he's burn it and put it through there, and it's designed to do that. And these Florida fish just like speed. I noticed it. I did some fishing the day of the Elite Series. I was just curious. Like I do have a few places that I catch fish around here, and I pulled up to the end of the barge canal down there, fished one of my holes, didn't catch anything. Cut across, went got in another hole, wasn't catching anything. Then I saw a pro pull up and start fishing the hole that I had just fished. So that made me feel real good. I don't know who he was. I didn't recognize the boat, but I don't follow that stuff real close. But yeah, he was definitely a pro. He's all lettered up. Um, and he came right down to the end of the barge canal, right where I was at, and fished in the exact same spot that I started. So I was proud that I'd at least caught some fish in that area and found that spot. Well, I don't know what he was fishing with. I was kind of fishing, I don't know, maybe 100 yards away from him, and I was keeping an eye on him, see if he caught anything, and he didn't. But um, I was working the jerk baits through the pads, and that's another thing too. You would think, man, you can't put those jerk baits through pads. Actually, they come through there pretty good, and these pads aren't that tough. That you can kind of, if they get snagged, you can kind of pull them up and get them out pretty easy. If you work it right, you can get it to come through the pads pretty good too. But I wasn't getting bites, and then changed the cadence. And by what I mean is I sped up. And another thing I've been doing with the jerk bait is a lot of times I'm snapping like that, like horizontal, right? Well, on these some like on the provoke and on the mega bass 110s and on the Berkeley stunner, all of them kind of fish about the same way. If you start popping them this way, you get a vertical pop instead of a horizontal pop. And go pop, pop, pop like that. You start getting like super fluke or like Zara spook type action subsurface on the pop like that. So I've been changing my cadence. I wind it down to get it deep, then bang, bang it real like a horizontal pull, and I mean pull it, bang, bang it hard. You're having a hard time. I'm using the high gear reel to keep up, to be able to recover because I'm pulling so much line. And then after I do that, you pause it there. If they don't pick it up there, then I start walking it, like snapping it up like that, 4, 5, 6 in a row, and you can see it. Boom, boom. It looks like a Zara spook under there, and then pause that. And as soon as I put the speed on it, bam, 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 I caught a limit. I caught there were 2 to 3 pounders, but I had a limit of fish, and I was proud because a lot of those guys went up on stage and they had the same amount of weight that I had that day. It was tough on me today, blah, blah, blah. I didn't catch a big one. It's like, well, yeah, I'm very familiar with not catching big ones out here, but I was proud to catch 5. Hey, Preston, man, what's up? We're just talking about you. Preston is the biologist that came on and spoke with us a couple of weeks ago. We were just talking about earlier, boys. I got on my soapbox about how people don't listen, Preston. I got a few things going viral, and man, I'm taking a beating this week. There's my man Cheek. If you need to know how to fish a jerkbait, go follow Philip Cheek, man. He'll put you on them. And honestly, Philip, a lot, you've helped me because once I figured out that they were on, um, yeah, oh, no doubt. Um, but Philip is a diehard jerkbait fisherman, and he's been following for 4 years. I've gotten to go fishing with him a few times. Philip's friend now. Um, but his videos have helped me because the jerkbait bite's real important here in Florida. You'll love it down here, Philip. You ever get down here, holler at me, man. We'll go get them. So certainly check out Philip's page. You can learn a lot from him. Yeah, Josh, it will. Especially, I've noticed in ponds. I was talking to Alex, flipping kicks. He's if he's still in here, I don't know, but um, in his 2.5 acre pond over there, last time I was up there checking on him, I was asking him if he had been fishing any jerk baits in that pond, and he said no. He's got some techniques that he likes, but he hadn't fished them much. So I think one of my first moves is take that new Sholey kayak that Drew designed up to that pond with Alex and put some jerk baits in play in that little 2 acre pond and see what happens. I've done that before, and usually the bass just come unglued on them because I've never seen them before. That's good, Josh. Glad to hear that. Yeah, there's my man. For y'all who don't know, Steven is a good friend of mine from college. We were actually roommates in college for a year. We're fishery students together, and Steven is the, you're the head of it, aren't you? The extension service, Steven, for the fisheries. If you call the extension service in Georgia and have a fish question, you'll end up with Mr. Patrick. He is an expert in his field as well. And shout out to the extension service and all that they provide. Another group of people that I need to be promoting more of. I certainly try to, but Stephen has been a good friend of mine for a long time and is a wealth of information about fisheries and fishing. The one thing about fisheries biologists is you can you'd be surprised, but there's a lot of them that don't bass fish, that don't fish at all, really. Um, we had a unique group that I think, and with most of the guys that came through with us were pretty avid bass fishermen, and and that was just a really rewarding experience. Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. I'm just a pod manager, dude. I don't know anything. I just nozzle head. All the only thing I know how to do is kill algae and pick up trash. Yeah, I saw that, man. I saw Sheldon on he was doing some tarpon stuff on Facebook, man. Looked pretty cool. Pretty cool. I'm glad to see him. He was one of our professors, Dr. Jay Sheldon, brilliant dude. Learned a lot from him. Shout out to Jay. And he's got some stuff going. Like I said, I believe it was tarpon fishing, fly fishing for tarpon, and he's got some cool stuff going on. So I just intend on using my platform for positivity and trying to help people understand where their mistakes have been made and try to highlight these biologists and these guys that are all smarter than me, um, that deserve respect that they're not getting, because they certainly worked hard at their degree and they certainly work hard at their jobs, whether it's at the extension service or whether it's the Florida wildlife guys or the ShareLunker guys, whatever, whoever. Um, I don't know. It's disappointing to me that they don't get the respect that they deserve. And if I can in some way positively influence that for them, then I would be very proud and consider this a very successful endeavor. No kidding. Good for Jay, man. Good for Jay. That's great to hear. Yeah, shout out. Poor Rich gets bashed. He's not even here to defend himself, is he, Steven? Jeez, man. Rich was a friend of ours. He went into the koi pond business. He's got a good thing going up in the Atlanta area with the koi ponds and stuff. Well, I've done it again. I told you I was getting off, and it's been a half an hour later, and I'm still not off. But yeah, man. Um, Steven, I'm going to be taking your advice too. Steven used to come down to this area and fish a lot when he was younger, and he's been giving me pointers, and I haven't been going to those places. I've been working here, working on becoming an Amazon influencer, which I finally got that done. Finally got monetized on YouTube. Um, so I've had just juggling a couple different things, but one of the places that I'm going to go is where the Silver River meets the Ocklawaha, and the Ocklawaha is the one that feeds this lake, Rodman Reservoir, out the back end and over that way. Silver Springs Park, you can go paddle in there. It's super clear water. You can see the manatees. Good tourist stop for anybody who comes to Central Florida. It's a cool place, and they've got like little trails you can paddle, through the park that are just like an hour long, or you can do the float all the way down the Ocklawaha, which is like I think like a 4 or 5 hour float. But it's real cool where those rivers converge, because it's super clear, like vodka clear water coming into brown tannic water, and it just draws a line. And Steven said that that's a real good place to catch some big bass, that he's been there before. So that is going to be a piece of content that I do going forward. Is getting out into the springs. I'm going to be using Drew Gregory's Shoaly kayak to paddle in those springs, and I think that's going to be a perfect kayak for that setup. That's why I'm getting it. And then getting into these real unique places like that where people haven't seen before, people are unaware of, and putting that out. So I'm really looking forward to all that content. And thanks, Steven, for everything you've done, all the tips you've given me. I really appreciate that, man. Yeah, I know, right? I bet that is cool. It's not far from here. That boat ramp down there's, I don't know, maybe, let's see, it's 12 miles to the end of the driveway. I call it a driveway. It's actually 243 road. I live in the National Forest, boys. I moved into the woods. I moved so far into the woods that my buddies from South Georgia come down here and go, "Damn, boy, you live in the woods." And I do. I mean, there's more bears around here than there is people. But see, it's 12 miles back there. Then it's about 8. So that's 20. It's maybe about 30 miles from here to get to that ramp. Not a bad drive at all. Half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. And Silver Springs is about that far away too. So, and there's actually Rainbow Springs, and there's a lot of springs that I'm going to be exploring from the Shoaly and checking out, doing different content. I really like kayaks. I really like the fact that, I would have loved to have had one when I was a kid. You don't need to spend a ton of money to go fishing when you've got a kayak. All right. A little tips from Steven. Yeah, Josh, I love the National Forest too, man. I've been biking through here every day. I've been getting some exercise, working out. I've been changing my diet. Like I said, I've had a little health stuff. I'm not dying. They can't really find anything wrong with me too bad, but I don't know. I just got some kind of old age working against me. So I've been doing a lot of cycling and lost weight, changed my diet, and feeling pretty good actually. Man, I love riding through the forest, man. It's just fun. I saw, like, today was Jumanji, and that's how it is out here. I'll tell all my friends about how many animals are out here, and then they come and nothing. You don't see anything. But I swear, I've gone out of my house to 20 Osceola turkeys right here in the side yard. Turned out, had to stop to let a deer walk across the road. Then had to move around and got out and look. There's a pygmy rattlesnake coming across the road. Get out of his way, let him do his thing. Go up the street a little bit more. There's a black bear, right? And I'm just like, and this is all before I get to, this is 3 miles down the road from the house. All that's happened. And so I'm just laughing myself. It's like, Jesus, it's like Jumanji out here today. And then in the corner of my eye, I'm not going fast because there's so many animals that I've already hit a deer out here, smashed the front end of the old truck up, had to get it fixed. So I'm not driving fast at all because all the wildlife is out. And I don't know, maybe I'm going 25. I'm maybe not that fast. I don't even know how fast I'm going. I'm not going fast. I'm just easing through the tight neck there. And I in the corner of my eye, I see something, right? And I look over and I swear to God, there is a peacock running in the ditch next to the truck, just looking at me, just sprinting in the ditch. And you go down to the Ocklawaha or the Silver River, and there's monkeys down there that got out from movie sets they did in Silver Springs. There's wild monkeys that live down there. So it is absolutely nuts here. Saw an alligator eat another alligator today. Saw the manatees feed, put that on there. So, like I said, the national forest is just like, I live with the skunk apes. That's right, man. That's the only thing I haven't seen, but I'm pretty sure he's out here, dude. Pretty sure. It's wild out here, man. It's wild. But for guys like us, man, it's a dream come true. It's been awesome living here. I've really enjoyed it. I just love the animals, you know. I like seeing all that stuff, and I feel like a tourist, you know. I'm sure everybody around here is like, oh yeah, manatees, or oh yeah, whatever, you know. They're used to it, but I'm not used to it, so I just think it's awesome. Anyway, like I said, my crud's kicking up, boys. My eyes are starting to water and itchy. Not feeling it. I'm gonna go take some medicine. But I appreciate everybody's engagement and everything that y'all do from your end with this and all the sharing that you've done. And let's just keep moving forward, being positive, you know, be a positive force in the world, be a, you know, even though they're a terrible pain, I'm going to do my best to help the guys that won't listen. Try to keep negativity out of it, try to be a good teacher and try to be a good steward of the environment and try to be a responsible sportsman. And I guess that's what I got for today. So thank you again, and we'll see you again next week. Oh, I'll be going live from the Shoaly Palooza in Thomaston. So hopefully I'll have a big shoal bass to show you guys. That'd be awesome. But anyway, thanks again, boys. We'll see you later.